So the first thing we're doing is we're going into the digital imaging interface, picking a particular form, in this case the EFT refund document. We'll just have a look around that interface at the details page, which shows us currently how the PDF document is going to be stored, in this case in Virtual Cabinet. It shows us which section value, shows us some mandatory fields with the asterisks. It allows us to add extra index fields for filing the document. So in this case we can pick index 34 from Virtual Cabinet, which happens to be the year index field, and we can then map it accordingly by finding the appropriate index to match. And in this case, from the document, we're selecting financial year. So that's all related to the filing of the PDF scan document. The Events tab shows us what else is to happen to the document after we finished filing it. And one of them is we have an event called a tax assessment update event, and we also have some additional events. And in this case we're looking at the letter auto file and the letter generation defaults events. Those two events will enable us to set up parameters so that when BPA generates letters, it'll drop the letters in a particular location for us, it'll give it a unique file name, and it'll assign it to a fee earner within the business who can manage the document that BPA generates. So for your file path, we always recommend you use a UNC path to where the documents can be stored, where BPA can access and drop those files. So we just need to add that using the text constant value, the file name of the actual Word document that you want BPA to generate, and this way we'll generate it based upon using the client name. We'll probably put a space and a hyphen and a space after the name, and we'll then probably add something like the document description from the scanned document. We'll add that to the name of the document. We'll add another space, hyphen, space after that. We'll also add the financial year, and the important thing here is to ensure that when BPA generates a Word document, that the name of the document doesn't conflict with any other name that appears in that directory structure. So giving it as many unique characteristics is imperative here. If you just gave it the client name and the document description, the client could have two scanned documents on the same day with the same description and that for the same client, and it'll get an overwrite. So the last thing we need to do is add the .docx. So BPA at the end of the day will say, I need to create a document when something gets scanned called the Notice of Assessment EFT Refund, and I want the client name, the document description, the financial year, .docx. And I'm going to assign it to a particular fee earner by default. You can offer a fee earner directly, or you can assign it to the client's matter manager or the partner or any other group of people that you think is going to be responsible for locating the document, editing the document if it's required, and processing the document back into Virtual Cabinet. The letter auto file event is the actual mapping that's going to be required to take the letter, and when we approve the letter, it'll automatically file it against your Virtual Cabinet document management system, and you need to select how to map the document back into Virtual Cabinet. So we mapped the PDF document, and now what we're doing is mapping the docx file when it's created back into Virtual Cabinet and which indexes we want to use. So you need to understand your current filing conventions, and you need to construct the appropriate values for the mapping. So for example, index 02 for this is the client ID space hyphen client name. We chose the cabinet as being the client's cabinet. We also have some other mandatory indexes, so if we just double check, we've got index 2 and index 3 are mandatory, and the index 3 is the matter ID with the matter description. So because they're mandatory by having the asterisk shown, and we also have an index 4 for description and an index 34 for year, we may choose that when we file the letter we also want to post exactly the same sorts of values into the Virtual Cabinet environment. So index 3 was the matter, so we should choose the PM attributes for the matter and choose the matter ID. And then we need to then allocate the space hyphen space, which is a text constant value. So you type in space hyphen space and add that to the list as we're building it. And the next thing is the matter description. And if you make a mistake, you can just use the backspace function there to delete one entry back, and you can click on the entry, click here to add, and it'll add that and build that context up for you. So now we've got the matter ID, space hyphen the matter description going into index number 3 when we decide to file the letter automatically into Virtual Cabinet. So we had other indexes like index 4, which was the description, and we can get that directly from the document, or we can build it according to any of those index fields that are available. So the document index fields are available for you to map, or PM attributes, or text constants. So you can make up whatever you feel is appropriate for describing your document or having index for with a value. So I've used client name, document description, and I'm adding financial year. And the reason why I did that is if you ever want to export your documents, you've got also the document description value there that has some meaning for you so that you can use it for emails or exports, and at least you've got something that has some value. Index 34 I think was the last index, but we also need to have a section value added, which is part of that security model. So if we look back at the details page, you can see that the section value is tax space hyphen tax return, and that was based upon the section name being client record classification. So once we know the spelling of that, we need to make sure that we post that via text constant, and we need to type it exactly. So if you don't type these index fields exactly, then when it tries to update Virtual Cabinet or iManage or any of the other document management systems that require the exactness of the data, then your records will fail to file. The other index values, you can see there's lots, and including security. You can assign an alternative security. At the moment, the current security level is 1 public, but in this case I can decide that for this document I want to assign an alternative security profile to the document. So you can be quite specific about having the Word document containing a different level of security profiles versus the PDF document, which has an alternative security profile. So once you've made those changes, BPA is then responsible for intercepting any new incoming scanned documents and then accordingly creating the Word document, dropping it into the default location. And then once it's created, the responsible person can come into the digital imaging to do page. They'll see all the documents in the document column, they'll see all the scanned PDFs in the original image location, and they'll be able to look at the original image and the document, make sure that it's okay, and then they can approve them by right mouse clicking on it and approving the letters for filing into Virtual Cabinet, which will then take the Word document and send it into Virtual Cabinet. So that basically concludes how to map your letter generation defaults to your document management system.